As we further progress into the Instagram era, where old is new, many users are looking to send their pictures back in time and give them a retro look. Let's take a look at how you can transform your images into ancient artwork. Starting off very simple, we need to convert our image to a black and white photo. Because I love working non-destructively, let's go ahead and add a black and white adjustment layer by clicking on the adjustment layer icon in your layers panel and then selecting black and white. Using adjustment layers allows you to edit the adjustment at a later point if needed. Now that our photo is stripped of its color, we need to wash it out a bit. Older cameras were not able to capture all the tones that today's cameras are capable of, so we need to drop the contrast of our photo. Again, using an adjustment layer, brightness and contrast will do the trick. However, if you're using a fairly new version of Photoshop, simply decreasing the contrast won't work that well, as the adjustment has been changed in recent years. You want to make sure to activate the legacy option, and then decrease the contrast until you have a nice, subtle, washed out look to your photo. Good. The next element we're going to add will act as faded spots that you might see on some older photos. Start by creating a new layer using the icon in your layers panel, or with your Command or Control, Shift and N shortcut, and with your color set to black and white, which can be achieved by pressing the D key on your keyboard, head up to the filter menu, down to render, and then clouds. The clouds that you'll be presented with will most likely contain too much white. We want to remove a good portion of that. Using your Command or Control L shortcut to access your levels adjustment, pull the midtone slider to the right in order to pull in additional dark tones, which will help with our blending. Once that's done, in your layers panel, change the blend mode of this layer to color dodge, and then decrease the opacity to around 20%. This should leave you with very subtle white spots on your image. Now we come to the cracks. Every old photo needs a few creases and cracks. While these could be created completely in Photoshop, using a texture may give you better results. So over at GoSkills.com, I found this nice texture that contains white cracks. Making sure your cracks are white is very important, and you'll see why in a moment. With the texture open in Photoshop, I can drag it right over to the document that I'm working on and move it in place. When you have it where you want it, double-click on its layer in the Layers panel to bring up our blending options, and take a look at the Blend If section at the bottom. This will allow us to blend away the darker areas of the texture, leaving only the white cracks. Blend If contains two bars, one for the current layer that you have active, and one for the layer below it. Because we're looking to blend out areas of our active layer, we're only going to focus on the top bar. Now as we want to remove the darker tones, dragging the shadow slider to the right will start to exclude them from our texture. But as you drag along, the results are looking very harsh. Here's a neat tip. Holding down your Alt key on Windows, Option key on the Mac, you can split the slider to create a much smoother blend, which should leave you with only the cracks visible and maybe a touch of gray, which is fine. Once you're happy with the blend, change the blend mode of the layer to Vivid Light, and then decrease the opacity until you're happy with the result. The cracks should be nice and subtle, nothing over dramatic. We're almost finished. At this point, we're going to go back and edit our original image. First, by adding a little bit of noise. With your photo selected in your Layers panel, make sure you convert your layer for Smart Filters under the Filter menu at the top. Like adjustment layers, this will ensure you can make changes later on. Once converted, head back up to the Filter menu, down to Noise, and then Add Noise. You want to add a nice subtle amount of noise, just enough so you can tell that there's noise. Somewhere around 10% for this photo should work well. Now that we have a little bit of noise, let's add one more effect. Double-clicking on your main photo to bring up our layer styles, let's add an inner shadow to rough up the edges. Change the blend mode to Color Burn, decrease the opacity to around 65%, set the distance at 0, and then crank the size up until you're happy with the way the edges are looking. And that'll complete it. From here you can easily make additional changes if necessary. This is why I stress working with adjustment layers. I can easily select the black and white adjustment and add a tint if I wanted to. Or I can change the blend mode of the adjustment layer to hard light to add a splash of color back into the photo while still keeping it retro.